Hey, welcome to today's episode of the Jeff Robertson Show. I'm excited. Someone I've recently connected with through a mutual friend, and we share some of the same passions, some of the same stories. Sounds like we have definitely shared some of the similar experiences on the job and kind of what is driving us into the job sometimes as police officers. But after 3 decades in law enforcement, Detective Brian Flanagan has seen more than most could imagine. But what came after the badge changed everything. Police shooting, a spiritual awakening, a call that connected crime scenes to the spirit world. Now Brian's using both of his investigative instincts and intuitive gifts to help families find closure and to explore what lies behind the evidence. Man, this is a conversation that bridges policing, purpose, and the possibility that love, not logic, is what heads us home. And I think the thing that we forgot to add in there, Brian, tell me if I'm wrong, you either got a book out or it's getting ready to come out pretty soon here, right?
So the book is done, and I sent it out to an editor. Um, and yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now.
What's
So,
it? What's the timeline on that? You think?
well, I switched the title.
Oh, I got
It
you. Yeah. How about does
it
that mess
was
you up when you do that?
what's that?
When you change the titles, does that mess you up, or is it
Well,
just
it actually came after the editing, and they thought that the title should have been a little bit more. They wanted me to switch the title. Yeah, I mean, originally it was called The Path.
yeah?
Um, it's more like a spiritual awakening, and exactly what you're saying, connecting really policing to the spiritual world, and embracing that in a job that I do. Because I think when you get into policing, and we could talk for hours about this.
Yeah.
You get into it. Everybody has a different reason to get into it. And ultimately, most people, and I never wanted to be a police officer. I just popped out a cop. But most people get into this thing because they want to help people. But I
Yeah.
think a lot of people get lost along the way. And I think that's
Dude, it does. Same thing. I just if you I was a couple episodes ago. I told the guy we were talking. I said my friend Tommy taught me this years ago when I was coming up through. He's like he was chewing one of his guys up when I was doing task force work. I would just be working with whoever, and he was a captain or lieutenant. And he was chewing one of his guys out, and he hung up. And he goes, "I said everything all right." And he goes, "I just standard bickering." He goes, and not realizing how good they got it. He says, and then he went through a couple other things, and he goes, and they got too much time, man. They get to griping about this, that, and the other, and start infighting. And he goes, and that's when we got to remember why we got into this job, Jeff. And he was so sincere when he told me. He goes, "We got in to do this because we like helping people, not arguing with each other all the time, or something like that's how we ended it." So
I
you're
think
right. We
I
we get
think yeah, I think that the innocence gets lost. I mean, if you're dealing with, let's say, 1% of the population, let's say we're dealing with 1% of the population over and over and over again, in crisis situations, I think that it just starts wearing on your soul. And I think that
yeah.
you as an individual look at things differently than you did the first day you come in.
Well, and I didn't realize this until later on, was a lot of guys and girls that come into police work, they've never seen bad. Like I grew up in a little bit of turmoil, just where I was exposed to arguing and fight. My great example, Brian. My kids, they have not lived nowhere near as what I have lived
Yeah, yeah,
to that point. So I think there's a little bit of that, and then it's a complacency. You start. I can go back and tell you, I lost a little self worth along the way. I started assimilating with the problems that I was fixing and not realizing what a asset I was. So a little bit of self worth along the way that you're just I'm just an undercover guy. I mean, what good I have? I'll be digging ditches if I well, as soon as I get out of here. What worth do I have? I didn't understand that, dude.
right, right. I had that humbling moment in the middle of my career, which kind of shifted everything for me. A very humbling moment, which is what really forced me, in looking back, to write this book, and what forced me back, more look at things from a different angle. You know, um, the original. So I did almost 25 years in a little small town police department in Connecticut, and once I started seeing a lot of these changes within me, um, well, first off, I had to take some time out of work to get help. And then I didn't know, I mean, we only had like 16 cops. I think it was like about 11, 10 or 11 came to me on the side asking for help. And I'm like, my God, is it that bad in here? Like I had no idea. And this is a little small town police department. I'm like,
Yeah.
and it just, and they were very embracing with a lot of stuff that was going on with me. Um, but I'm very,
Walk me back there. So you start experiencing some issues on the job. What was
so what
going on
happened
there
was,
with you?
when I was first on a job, so we worked in this little residential town. It was probably like 12 to 15,000 people, a little
Yeah.
small town, a little small farm town. And, you know, there were a lot of times where you had two-person minimum, but for the first 12 years, if somebody called out on a Friday night and they tried to fill it, you were it. So you were it. And so there's a lot of experiences I've had being it. I mean, I've been in auto fatalities. I've had college kids die in my arms by myself with no backup, middle of nowhere. Um, and for me, the shift came one night when I was working, and it was a house fire. And in looking back, the fact that it's a 40 square mile town, it's a pretty big town, but the fact that I was one street away with this house fire, and I literally went into the fire because there was a 5-year-old boy who was inside, and I saw the father on a ladder trying to get in. So I kicked my way into the house, and it was like out of a movie. There were things that were on fire in a room. It was just surreal. And then what had happened to me is I heard, you know, when you hear like a gas grill lighting after you try
Yeah.
to light it and light it. Well, I heard that in my head. So I honestly thought that there was a propane tank somehow connected and it was going to explode. And I looked up these stairs and the stairs were on fire. And I'm like, it was almost like my brain had already made a decision that my body didn't catch up with. Because as police officers, we're told, you know, and it still bothers me to this day, the life of a child, you know, of children and the elderly. I think that when you get into the job, you realize how important those, I don't say classes, but those sections of society are, the kids and
Yeah.
the elderly, because they're the ones that are most
Vulnerable.
vulnerable.
Yeah.
And I couldn't get up. I just made it. There's no way I was going to get upstairs. And the child died. The reality was that we had a town doctor who was out there. And he said he was passed away long before he even got there, to smoke inhalation. But it was that shift. So I had that happen to me.
What year was
And
that, Brian?
oh God, when was that? So I started in '94. I'm gonna say like and I should know this. It was like maybe 2, 3 years in a job, maybe '96. I'm gonna say he would be 30. Yeah, it was a couple years in a job. And the crazy thing is, the chief writes a letter. You know, sometimes these are how the synchronicities are that you don't. You know, you look back. Chief wrote a letter basically saying, you know, like more of thank you for what you did, and
Yeah.
said sometimes, you know, unfortunately, people you'll experience people things like this, or you'll experience, you know, people dying in your arms in auto accidents. It wasn't a week later, I had a college kid die in my arms in an auto accident. So there was that experience, and it was shortly after that I started getting this weird feeling of like the shoe was going to drop, and I had no idea what that was about. And then I end up running a shift one night. There was a suicidal male, one in a town, and he had threatened to shoot himself earlier. And like a revolving door, we see a lot of times. He was committed and back out. And so we're dealing with him. We took off in the woods. It's getting dark. Now I have a state policer out there with a canine. And I asked what the chances are of getting the helicopter, which they would never, ever, ever put up in the air. They get the helicopter this night. In the middle of this thing, I have a woman repeatedly getting stabbed in a house on the other end of town. So that ended up becoming the first ever police shooting in the town's history. And
Yeah.
after that incident, that feeling that I had went away, was gone. And so it was just, didn't really think too much about that. Then here's where everything starts happening, Jeff. Then I go to another domestic. And as we're going inside a house to arrest a guy who, you know, tuned up his girlfriend's fiance pretty good. And I knew the family. I grew up with the family. I just didn't know this particular brother, much younger. And my gut feeling was saying, get a dog, get a dog, get a dog. We go in the house, looking for the guy. The girl gave us permission to, you know, woman gave us permission to go in the house. And my partner kicked the door in. And what ended up happening was he crosses the threshold to the room. Stupid tactics, stupid, stupid, stupid. We should have had one lethal, one less lethal. We both had our tasers out. When I went into the room, he pulled a handgun out right at me. He was faking the whole thing because he was on a bed in the bedroom. And I honestly thought I was going to get shot. And
Yeah.
so when I dove to the ground, my partner hit him with a taser. And then I went to grab the gun. I got electrocuted up to my elbow. He then tried to grab it. He got electrocuted. Then he had to turn a taser off, and the guy grabbed the gun with his finger right near the trigger of this gun, this handgun. All out wrestle match, rip him off the bed, finally get him into custody. And I'm like, you got like, that's a moment where you're like, what just happened, you know?
Yeah.
And my buddy had just come back from he was over in Iraq running a platoon, and it was at that point in time where things just started shifting dramatically for me because the simple calls started getting hard for me, and to the point where man, I'm not really getting specific. I remember we had a female being held at knife point at Dunkin' Donuts, and my mind going down there is what's the matter with this thing? And I'm like, what do you mean? What is the matter? Like, what is wrong with you? I pulled myself from work, which back in the day you don't do because I think when you and I were cops, this is old school policing. I hate to say it, you're kind of considered weak if you pulled yourself from work to get help, and at least that was my mindset. And but I did, and after this is when everything started happening. Everything, the spiritual shift, we'll say.
Yeah. Dude,
Um,
all right, hey, just pause real quick. Let's debrief a couple things because I know where we're headed. But I want to, because I wanted to tell you, like, we're not far apart. Remember, Nancy said, like, hey, you guys are gonna love talking to each other. Like, I was making notes and just kind of some associations because I had a kid too, right out of the academy, but I'd done EMS for many years. But school bus incident and the bus is stopped and it's 4-lane highway, speed limit 55. Most people do 65, and you go down the swag, come back up, and there was a school bus stop there, and a car goes down, and then the car stops. Tow truck coming over doesn't is clipping through there, and doesn't realize there's like no notice of school bus stops coming. He hits the car and pushes it under the bus. Um,
mm,
and I was it was volunteer system. There's a little bit of paid support, but they came from a different area. First person on the scene was the local like division of forestry guy who was a firefighter, and he kind of did the scene size up school bus, tow truck versus car versus school bus, and then not sure what he had, right? So anyway, point being was then one of the little girl passengers who was a classmate of the kids on the bus, she expired that day, and I had worked with her. That got me and all my buddies got there. Like we worked on her, and no, she was the only one. Like her brother, nobody, her grandmother was killed, and her brother was fine, and the two people that was on the driver's side passed away that day. So I was just making notes, like we shared some
but
near deaths and some different
but
things, and I just want to tell everybody this is where I want to sum it up. This is kind of where we need to talk about it a little bit. It's like you're taught in this police officers don't listen to your gut, don't follow your intuition, play the scenario in front of you because a lot of shootings occur or police deaths occur when they build an unnecessary trust, like the guy with the gun, right? It's like, oh, he seems like a really good guy, and you end up getting capped. But as you move into other phases, investigation, start doing things, dealing with more different crimes and experience is these little gut feelings, man. So we both, that's what we had talked about, folks. Just for everyone's listening, is like just kind of intuitive, listen to your gut and in some of your investigative stuff. And man, I ended up in some really, like I ended up, in solving a lot of things and doing so I just wanted to let everybody know kind of where we were headed and how some of your experiences, Brian, has jogged these things, and because you operate so close to that veil sometimes, I think, I don't know.
well, you know what's interesting too? It's because my son's going through it right now, and my daughter, she's coming out of college. Is what do you want to do in life? Like it's so hard. Kids coming from high school into college, it's so hard to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
So my mentor in high school was my accounting teacher. So I want to be an accountant, right? I went to Bryant University in Rhode Island because I want to be an accountant. And I transferred back to University of Connecticut, be closer to home and commuted. I didn't like being away. I like being more around the nest, so to say. And I pop out a police officer. Never my wildest dreams. My first CPR call was my accounting teacher
Oh,
that I
wow.
found, and so and with all the experiences that we haven't talked about yet, I look back and I said, did I meet him to be an accountant, or did I meet him to be with him when he was crossing over? I mean, there's no such thing as a coincidence, and like we may think we're controlling things, but are we really? The other thing too I want to say, Jeff, is it's just, and I don't want to. I say this tongue in cheek and try to be very politically correct with it,
Yeah.
but there's a mindset now in policing that they have all these in Connecticut's called cable, um, what is it, like the mental health within the agencies to
Yeah.
look out for the police officers,
Yeah.
but
Like an
the,
EAP, like employee
yeah,
assistance.
like the EAP, but the
Yeah.
thing is that number one, you as a police officer or anybody as an individual, even if it's outside of policing, you're not going to talk until you're ready to talk.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And you also have to trust the person who you're talking to.
Yeah.
And so it becomes like this big facade that on the outside, here we have all these resources for the police officers and for the public safety or for whoever. And I'm probably like, we talk about it among some people in here. It's just the way the systems are set up. And you want the system to be set up like that in case there is somebody, that one person. But a lot of us realize that you're not going to talk until you're ready to talk. And
Yeah.
it's this duality that you're battling.
The all right, so I'm glad you bring that up like that because I did my first 100 episodes of my podcast was 100% me doing therapy. One of my last guests was Nancy. Like, and I knew I was kind of like found what I was looking for. I talked to the right people, amazing guests that helped me with what you said because when I was just going through, sometimes like-minded individuals enable each other, folks. So just keep that in mind here. But I was at a point in my life where when I needed to talk to some people who had some similar child, just some different things, and just walk through those, how you feel, processing the moments, processing things. And here's why. Was I ultimately ended up where I was. Law enforcement drank too much, all the things, and here I am today talking to you, and I'm very happy. But one of them, I always wanted to be able to just for a police officer who was six or public safety, whoever, firefighter. I never felt like I could talk to the EAP. I never felt like anybody was, and so when I hit me my bottom moment was my buddies were like, "Hey man, maybe I'll think about getting some help." And I go, "Okay, I'm in. Find me someone who's walked where I've walked and been through what I've been
Right,
through,
right.
and it's going to understand my words of where I'm at." And I couldn't find that person, and they couldn't either. And they were like, "Here's a preacher, here's a this," and everybody. Listen, man, I'm going to tell you what. Everybody wrapped their arms around me. I just pushed it all the way back then
Mhm.
because I was
Yeah.
too stubborn. But I couldn't find that. So nowadays, I want to be more of that for everyone that is in that similar situation. But agencies won't look at old Jeff. I had tried to teach back at my local police academy. It's like, hey man, I'd love to come back, create some kind of relationship or whatever. And I'm not saying it fell on deaf ears, but it was like. I was the broken guy that nobody like. He has new value for where we're headed, and I was so when you said like I knew you and I were going to get a chance to talk about that. And I've been kind of sitting on those words to tell you same thing. Like I have walked right there on the negative side, and man, I hate to see police officers like there's some guys in their life. Somebody's in their life, into get to the end of the this is my whole identity's wrapped up in this job, and they'll take their life. And I'd love for them to come say, hey, let me tell you you're welcome to listen to me, man. I have absolutely. I went to jail twice, right? I mean, I have. I made it through the first one. I had horrible relationship. Like I just didn't know how to live. It took me forever to grow up. So, man, I have absolutely been on the negative side of just growing up in that agency. So I don't. Man, I'm
I
really
think I
glad you brought
think
this
that
up, dude.
I think for like I think the police departments need to be really careful who they choose because it needs to be somebody who people really trust.
Yeah.
Like I find now that I'm getting up there in age, I'm 55, and so a lot of these kids are coming in 21, 22. I feel like I'm more like father figure to these kids, more mentoring, and I think that's important. That's everything. Um, because we're going to
And this
experience
is
things that, I'm sorry.
me and my buddy was on the phone talking. He's still on the job. I told him, I was like, the only thing I missed was being able to pass along some of the cool stuff and the
Yeah.
mentoring to the younger guys. So I get that. I understand.
Yeah. Yeah. And I unfortunately learned it through the School of Hard Knocks. I mean, I had to learn this lesson a different way. And then the EAP, well, not say EAP, but the departmental EAP, we'll just say, came up after a lot of this incident that happened with me. Um, but
So the point being
yeah.
is, folks, if you're having this same feeling, your EAP person may not understand. And you're like my buddy Dave one time. He's funny. He's like you gotta be careful how you talk to EAP. So you can't joke with them,
Well,
right? They,
yeah, I didn't, because I know they report in a small PD, they report the numbers back. They don't report who is going to it.
yeah,
And for me, I ended up going outside looking for help. And everything in law enforcement up to that point came out. I cried. And, honestly, it's okay to be that way, because when I came back a different person, completely different person. And I think that I carry that, you know, you, I'm back. I jumped back on a horse again. Never ever want to do policing after this arresting this guy with his handgun. But when I came back, it wasn't this, hey, the kid who, this drug addict down the road. It was like, here's a kid who has medical issues, and let's see what. I
yeah,
sat with a kid for an hour who had just got out of drug rehab. I never would have done that. Tell him how proud I was that he got through that. And some of my coworkers are looking at me and they're like, this guy's completely different. And it started rubbing off on some of them, because ultimately that's why we're here.
yeah.
I mean, ultimately, and it kind of feeds into why you become a police officer, but it feeds into more of the essence of why we, in general, why we're here as a human being. I mean, we're here to learn lessons. We're here to push that love forward. And if we can make somebody else, a lot of these people, not only kids that I deal with and you've dealt with, I look at it as like not the heinous things, but they're speed bumps on the path of their life. Learn from it and move forward. And
I learned that more in drug work because I was closer to problems, and I got to as I was getting older, I was doing drug work, and I got to see where problems are created, and sometimes they're a byproduct of system issues. And
yes,
right, I mean, when I'm from for record, Brian, I'm from Southwest Virginia. I was the opioid capital for pharmaceutical companies. Right. The city I live in leads the nation, is a nation leader. They don't lead the nation, but they're in the top of overdoses in the United States. So working drug work, I'm in 110% tuned in to exactly what you're saying. There's some guys that are bad, Brian. There's
I
some
know,
people out there
I
that
know.
are just they're born, they like to hurt people, and that's a whole different look.
Yes,
But when we look
yes.
at 95, you take those folks out, a lot of things that these folks are experiencing is a byproduct of something they just
They're
lived in
also
their life.
having, yeah, they're also having. I mean, when I became a police officer, you apply against 1,000 person for a job. Nowadays, it's so hard to get police officers.
Yeah.
And we see the hiring struggles that go on. No one wants to do the job anymore, and it's
You
sad.
all right, so let me get you back on track here because
Yeah.
I want to take us somewhere else right there in a second because you're right. But here's what I wanted. You have a series of events, and then
Hmm.
we started getting into the intuitive side.
Yes.
Walk us through, like, you had this series of events, and that's where I interrupted you to kind of explain to the audience of
So,
what goes on, get some more background about you. Now take us start us back into that after your series of events, and walk us through kind of what goes on with Brian then.
so I took a couple months off of work, and everything came out from my police career. I'm probably like 13 years into this career already. Probably more like 15 years. And I started seeing like all sorts of things started happening. I started seeing faces at night. I would see faces of people I don't even know who they were. Um, I mean, I hear people talking into my bed. I remember hearing these males talk into my bed. It was just nonstop, like nonstop. I make it back to work. Um, And then all these weird things started happening at work. I remember one day being in a dispatch area. Well, back before I tell you that, all things started happening. I started knowing things before they were going to happen, which was bizarre. So I say to my mother, like, it's like a twofold thing. My mother's like, oh, there's a story when you were a kid, you came out of the room and you were building puzzles and, you came out. And I'm like, why am I just hearing this story now? Well, there was a woman in there who was talking with you. She was with the next door neighbor, a girlfriend of hers, and they went into the room and then there was no one there. And she swore to God I was going to be a priest. And she swore to God it was the Virgin Mary. The woman was dressed in blue, I said. I'm like, and since that day, my mom just passed away a couple months ago, but I would always, every now and then, first off, I'm like, why did you never tell me this story? Number one. Number two, I also would go back through the events and change the story to see if how accurate it was. And she was always and as she got, she passed when she was 89. She couldn't remember certain things, but she was always spot on with what happened in that room. And so my younger sister's a lot like me too with this intuitiveness. So fast forward over to work, all these things are happening at work. I mean, like I remember being in a meeting one day and it was a law change, a department meeting in the morning. And I'm like, listen, we've got to address this law change because this is going to happen. Bang, we get called right out of that meeting for the same exact call of what I was saying. It was happening all the time. So much so that when I got back, the chief of police yanks me into the office, shut the door, sit down. What's going on with you? And I'm like, well, and honestly, Jeff, I was freaking out. I just come back to work and I thought I was going to get fired for something. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, how you know things are happening? I don't know. I don't know why this is happening to me. I have no idea. Well, you're freaking people out. My phone would go off and it was almost like, I remember my phone would go off and the words on the songs that were being played would lead me exactly on what was going to happen. It was like bizarre. Um, I remember one time we were busy one night. We go to this call because the fire department was at a fire. They saw, drugs in this guy's bed, blah, blah, blah. Long story short, we get there. The guy starts pulling guns out of his closet. I'm like, this guy does not look like he should have guns. So I run his criminal history, he's a convicted felon. We were so busy that night, I was just going to bring the weapons back and do an arrest warrant for the guy, not arrest him on speedy. I go to take this guy aside and start explaining to him, and I hear music. I thought it was his music. I remember some like 80s music. I remember what the name, I have it written down somewhere. I think it was like a Def Leppard song or something like that. And it was talking about things are going to abruptly change. And I was like, good music, whatever. So my partner was interviewing his girlfriend at the time. He pulls me aside. He's like, hey, and he's like, where's that music coming from? I'm like, well, the guy's got music in the other room. He goes, dude, that's coming from your pocket. I'm like, what? So all of a sudden I realized things are about to abruptly change. I'm not going to be taking these guns and doing an arrest warrant. I'm going to be arresting this guy speedy. Here's what happened. One of my sergeant, who never comes in off duty, ever, happened to have been passing a PD. It's like 11 o'clock at night, happens to stop in, and it's exactly what the words in the song was. This is happening all the time. All the time this was happening. Um, I had a dispatcher one night who would always debate the afterlife. He's always like,
Yeah,
if there's an afterlife, just tell them to read what's on the page. I'm like, Patrick, this doesn't work like this. That's not how it works.
it worked.
So, so I come in one night. I worked an overtime shift. It's
Move
on
this
two.
can across the
Right.
room.
It's not how it works. But I had no idea about this. Is a lot of things. I'm kind of throwing a lot of things at you right now, but what happened that night was bizarre. I come in, do my billing checks. I come in. I usually would do the billing checks, come in, sit down at dispatch for a little bit, and then go back out and go out on the road again. So I'm sitting there with this dispatcher, probably like throw my phone maybe 20, 25 feet away on a table. The room is dark. We're just talking. And as he's saying this to me, the phone lights up. So I'm like, and we both look at him like, who's calling me like 2 in the morning? So I go on my phone, I pick it up, and it's not anyone calling me. It's my phone calling out somebody. Like, how does that happen? The phone was sitting there for like a half hour, right? So my buddy, the dispatcher's like, well, who's it down? So I show him the phone. He runs out of the police department. He's dry heaving. I'm like, where the hell did the dispatcher go? I run out. He's out there like dry heaving. I'm like, what is going on with you, dude? Like, you got to be inside. How did you get that number? Why is that number? I'm like, dude, I don't know why my phone is doing it. It happened to be a doctor that he was seeing 2 days later because he thought he had cancer, a gastrointestinal doctor. Like, these were the things that were going on, Jeff.
That's a
So
good one.
it was just out of control, like a fire hydrant of stuff going on. Now, on top of all this, I had no idea what a medium was. Well, I
Yeah.
don't even know what a medium is, right? I grew up Roman Catholic, the whole 9 yards, but I will say that I became more spiritual after a lot of these things happened. Um, I went to this woman, phenomenal, Joanne Gerber out of Boston, and then another one, Maureen Hancock out of Boston, and didn't know what a medium was. They were doing this presentation, and both of them, who I've never met before, not even from the area, just started talking about this little boy who died in this house fire. Now, number one, it's juvenile records. Number two, like, I don't talk about that because you know, to this day that still bothers me. I
Yeah.
visit his grave a lot, and that's a lot of what the book was about. Um, but one of the women, Maureen Hancock, actually said his name. What are you saying to me? Slow down. And my kind of coworker, and she almost fell out of her chair. And so then I started kind of following down that hole of, wait a minute, like as you get older, why are we here? Like, I mean, are we really? We're more spiritual beings renting a human body. We're all here to learn lessons. And so my Roman Catholicism kind of started shifting towards more spiritual, realizing like all these things were happening to me. Why are they happening? What's the purpose in all this? And some of the people I've studied under, absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal means. Matter of fact, one of them is a retired police officer from Salem, Massachusetts, Chuck Bergman, who's
Cool.
known in America as the Psychic Cop. Wrote a book, Psychic Cop, and I've become just good friends with Chuck. And this guy has solved murders with one name, not knowing anything about the case.
Yeah.
And there's just no way. There is another side, and I think out of all of this, I've learned that to me, and I say this being a police officer, it sounds mushy, but it's who I am now. It's about love, and that ties into everything that we do. It ties into what we talked about earlier with this EAP with the job. It ties into the families who just want closure for a lot of these cases. Everything ties into love, and I was blessed to have the right teachers, Nancy being one of them, and I think that things happen for a reason. You look back and when I first met Chuck Bergman, I had met a guy, Joe Higgins. Here's another thing that happened. I wake up one day, I kept getting a start, write a book, write a book, write a book, which I ignored. I woke up one day and my phone is playing a podcast. I didn't have podcasts on my phone. I didn't listen to
Sure.
podcasts. It's playing a podcast, three metaphysical authors on how to write a book. And one of them was the Mock. And I'm like, oh, this dude's from Massachusetts. Like, who is this guy? It's right next to me. Joe Higgins, phenomenal guy. Wrote 3 books on the afterlife. And I ended up finding out that Joe and Chuck, now Joe's down in Florida, that these two had known each other, best men at each other's wedding. Like, what's the synchronicity of that happening? And it's all these little breadcrumbs that were all connecting.
Yeah.
It was just bizarre, bizarre, But I
I'm with
look
Hey,
at things.
listen, I'm with you on the breadcrumbs thing. And folks, I'm serious about that because yeah, I think I shared with you the I had started having some just different, like during police work, it was always kind of intuitive. I could read a scene pretty good. But I thought I had a good mentor, and he taught me how to really dial in um my skills there. And then as I got further, and then different things, I mean, just kind of walk through life. But here's what I'll tell you. Here's what I was going to tell you. In 20, I was working through just some different stuff, and I got connected with a lady who can kind of read chakras, and it's just a
Mhm.
great friend of mine, Nanette, and she did a little healing energy session with me, and so that kind of propelled me off. I got visited by a cousin. Like the only visual thing I've ever had was a cousin of mine who was a great friend of mine. he had passed away, and he just he kind of I had this big visual, and then so anyway, um, that got me going. So I really started off on this journey and started with her. Like I had this feeling I needed to ask her more about this that gift that she had. And when I did, it opened up these doors. I said, hey, I need to learn a little more because I was struggling with just spirituality. I grew up kind of like you and just in a Baptist church and preachers things that weren't things that I was like being influenced to really follow. It's like it's not cool in the regular church, and everybody's like, "Adam, just it's part of spirituality, Jeff. You get to choose your own path, or your own path's been
Right.
chosen for you." So I went with her, and I got in my as I'm riding up the road, and I was like, I said, "Hey, I need to figure out what I can do to get in just better communication with like my higher self and become more spiritually." And so I put my phone down, and I go, my wife's driving, and she's like, "What we got on your mind?" I said, I read the text to her, and she goes, "Oh, I just listened to it." Boop, and she hits play. And there's this book on exactly what I'm looking for, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I wondered
Yeah.
why that was there." Right? So she hits play. So anyway, I can stack these up, and for the sake of time.
Yeah.
Same thing about the breadcrumbs of kind of ultimately, and Nancy had told me, she's like, "You and Brian are going to hit it off just fine." And I feel the same thing just through the nature of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
conversation that me connecting with her was ultimately one another breadcrumb that put you and I together because folks, me and Brian don't really know each other, but we have like it's an easy conversation like we've known each other for years, and
Yeah.
commonality of police work, but then just how we probably of just whatever circles they are, it's like it's an easy conversation. So I wanted to interrupt you to tell you that I really like the breadcrumbs thing is you spot on, man. You're absolutely right with
There's a
that.
woman. There's a woman. I never forget. Rita Berkowitz, phenomenal spirit archer. I've seen her work. She's unbelievable. She told me one time, if you're not getting, if you're supposed to be on a certain path, you're not getting it. The spirit's going to hit you upside the head with a 2x4 until you get it.
Agree. Yes.
And I mean, I'm still trying to, you know, navigate myself through this. Like if you take a right instead of a left on a path, if you're supposed to be in a certain way, you'll end up there. You know,
I think it's like
it's
it's you can the path like you're going to get to go and you might have some different experiences on one, but you ultimately end up like I've learned that in along my way here. I think that's been where I was able to because I felt that the other thing I'll tell you that happened, Brian, was the a pivotal point around this time of 9 was I got arrested for DUI.
Mhm.
Did my time, had weekend encounter, like I had all the things. And career ending in Virginia, you can't operate an emergency vehicle for 5 years. So it's like you're done.
Wow,
Yeah, yeah. Which I had
wow,
I had friends from up north, probably worked somewhere around you. I don't remember a lot of the names, but they had a friend of a friend. They're like, hey, go here. They don't care, or go
yeah,
here. And I
yeah,
was so
yeah.
rooted to the area that I didn't want to leave. Right. And I probably could have sought work in other places, but truthfully, I knew I needed to step away, and I'm very fortunate of the things that how they landed because I really
Hmm.
it freed up my future to get on to what I needed to do, and and here we are. But I'm running a gym, and my one of my members husband it comes to me and says, "Hey man, just want to tell you, we got to meet that day," and he was like, really excited that that my wife has been here, man, and they had had a baby that had died, and they were just dealing with that as in their relationship, right? And he told me like just me her being at my gym, what a difference it made, and just helping her with her mental health and keeping her marriage. And me and him was talking later. Have I told you this? Ever told you? All
Mm-mm.
right, so listen, here's where it got good. Um, he goes, "Hey Jeff, I heard you used to be a police officer." I'm like, "Yeah, I was." He goes, "My dad was a police officer." And I'm like, "Really? Where at?" And he goes, "Same county I'm from." And I was like,
Wow.
"Oh, really? What was his name?" And it ended up being the trooper that had arrested me. He had died. He had died. I never got to meet him. We met in court and some other places, but I didn't know him like that. He had died probably 5 years later. And then I end up impacting his son and daughter-in-law. And Brian, it freaked me out a little bit. But I went outside and I called my other friend Brian, and I was like, "Dude, you ain't gonna freaking believe this. What's going on?" And he's like, "What you gonna do?" And I'm like, "I don't know." But I had this overwhelming feeling that he of appreciation, and that he knew that I would be the right guy that could help him with that. And like he had,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
that he there's just that since then I've told Danny and Jenny the whole story, and that I wanted to tell them. I was like, before I tell this publicly on my podcast, I want you all to hear it. Same thing, man.
Yeah.
Emotional, like I cried like a baby. Just telling them what a how good it felt for me to be able to help them, and the feeling that I had got just from the universe, that was just part of my plan, man. So that was one of my big moments when you look at the reason why I was giving you that example of how I was on this path, and this negative event disrupted my whole life and made me refigure out a new way of life. And I kind of went around, but ultimately I came back to impacting that
Yeah.
trooper's
Yeah.
son, right? And because the son asked me, he goes, "My dad always wondered, he was mad because he had to do it, all the stuff, right?" And I was like, "Oh no." And I said, "The only thing I regret was your dad never got to see me as a good police officer. He only saw me as a guy who on that side of the road that night, because he didn't know me and I didn't know him." I was like, I always think he thought I was right, and for the lack of better words, so sorry about that, but screw up. And so, and he told me, Danny told me at night, he goes, "Oh no, he knew." And and so I got to know him a little better, got to know his son way better, all that stuff. So that was kind of like my thing, dude, of like really a big moment of like you're here for bigger things than what you've been giving
Yeah. Oh
yourself
yeah.
credit for,
Oh
right?
yeah. And there's no doubt that he was instrumental in where you are as far as
Oh
connecting
yeah,
you with them.
yeah,
Yeah. You know, I often would I still wait for my mom because we would pinky swear. If I go first, let me know what's over there. Let me know there's something else. If you go first and I haven't, it's been um it's been weird. My father, here's another weird thing I was having too. I was having dreams all the time. So like of things that would happen. I have a journal. Must have like a 400, 500 page journal of things that would happen before they happen. It was weird. Not this past Thanksgiving of 23, have a dream, and I'm there, and it was, I was in a room, and I felt like 35 people. It just felt like a bunch of people, family members were there. I couldn't see their faces. But my aunt was over here, and she'd passed away, and my uncle was over here, and he had passed away, and they were married. And the uncle was my dad's best friend. Now she kept saying, "When is Johnny getting here? Is Johnny here yet? Did Johnny get here yet?" And I had Thanksgiving dinner at the house before, and I had gone to bed that night, and it was about 3:08 in the morning. I remember the times I had to go to the bathroom. It's usually when you're kind of in, kind of out, that like kind of meditative. That's kind of where I get these things. Um, I woke up that morning, and I want to call my buddy Joe Higgins. I'm like, "Dude, you got to listen to this," because I just signed on to duty outside. Because at the time I was with the state environmental conservation police, so I covered like about 17 towns. And as soon as I pick up the phone to call Joe, my sister calls me telling me that Dad's doing CPR on Dad. So I get over there, and I mean, he was dead. He'd been dead for hours. You can see the lividity, and they backtracked it. That he was around the time that I had said, about 3 o'clock in the morning. And those, how would I know all these things? And why is it happening? And why is it happening to you? And why are these synchronicities happening? But like, I just think that what? If anything, Jeff, out of you and I talking today, I almost feel like people should be aware.
yeah.
Like you find a coin, and this is what Joe Higgins and I will talk about all the time. You find a coin in the ground, hey, it's a penny. Now, what does a penny say? What's a year in a penny? Is there any significance to it? I mean, I'm not like crazy, but like open up yourself, because those little things could mean things on a much bigger level.
My wife
I
with
don't.
money, Brian, with money, my wife is very deliberate in that. If she finds a coin, she'll stop and be like, "All right, it's a gift from somebody. We just need to figure out like
Right,
it's somebody or
right.
somebody like there's she'll look at it, she'll inspect it, she'll kind of pay attention to it where we're at. Sometimes I'll joke with her and be like, you found a freaking penny. Let's go. But she does. She makes
Right,
stuff. She
right,
goes,
right.
oh, I know. And I said, I know. I'm just messing with you. I'm just talking like my mom or something. Like, it's a damn penny. Let's go. The dreams. You ready? I'll give you a good one on dream. Um,
Mhm.
Teaching leadership last week, and I teach 1.5 days is kind of it's a little bit of disc, and there's some just I don't have to create a lot of content, but my so 8 hours or so is kind of things that I like to cover. The other 16 I make up. Like as I feel the room, like I really dial in on, like I try to listen to what you're feeling, and then I just kind of create, like they had some, just it was just more like great create some better communication and team. So I just kind of just kept filling the room, and I'd come home and I'd tweak my stuff based on that, right? So I was working on just like something to really help them understand. It's industrial, couple new leaders in there, and man, this is no joke. I was asleep, and I started having a dream that my wife is having an affair with Nate at Endodyne. And so when I
Uh-oh.
wake up, yeah, I wake up and I'm like, all right, this is pretty deliberate. I'm remembering it first off, and it's an emotional, like wanting me to go do some day, like there's something here I know I need to go do some work on this. Well, Endodyne is not a work. It's been trademarked by a company one time years ago, but it's not in use or in any on internet or anything like that. Just in that, I was joking with my class, just so you know, Nate with Endodyne is not on LinkedIn, because I was looking for Nate to see what the deal was. And so
Nice.
anyway, you ready? Endodyne, you know what it means?
Good.
Power within. So I created this gets a little deeper. So I was like, hang on here now. So I wrote it out and everything. I'm like, all right, this right here is my closing. This is my closing
Yes.
about bringing all this together with, like, you're empowered as a leader and you have this power within. So all right, it gets better. So I'm back in on we're doing our thing at the plant manager or plant lead. I think he's manager is the title he has. Great guy. This group is an amazing group of leaders. And he goes, yeah, he says, he goes, this reminds me of this conversation. We're just talking about something random. I've told nobody about this except for my wife. And he goes, it reminds me of this book where, there's four choices, and you make four choices, and you have all this book so long, and ultimately each choice takes you to realizing that you're the answer. Like everything that you're trying to figure out is right here. You just got to keep
Yes.
challenging yourself till you get to it. And I go, oh shoot, man, that's Endodyne. And he was like, what? I go, it's Endodyne. And I went and wrote it on the board. And I said, and then we were doing some discussion. I said, all right, let me tell you the story about it. So I said, Joe, this right here solidifies me knowing that this is supposed to be in this moment, right? Because you brought it up, and so I got to tell him a little bit of just intuitive, different things about where my inspiration comes from. Sometimes just kind of listen to my gut and listen to the room, and I said, in this case, it came from a dream on my freaking wife messing around with some dude named Nate, and I had to start hound
But
dogging.
there's a
I'm
bigger
looking for
message in
Nate. Yeah. So use a
it.
little dream tie in to what you were saying. So I wanted to put that in there because
You know, I had a dream last night, and I don't remember, I wrote it down because I was looking him up. Of usually you wake up, you don't remember. I remember a specific name, and watch this. Probably in a couple days, this guy's name will pop up. I'll have some interaction with him. No
yeah,
idea who he is, but
right.
I don't know. I mean, there's meaning in a lot of stuff, but
Are you doing all right? So I wanted to tell everyone, because we're going to come back. We're right on top of my
Mhm.
cut time. I want to tell
Sure.
everyone this is a episode one of a handful that Brian and I are going to have to do, because it's such a cool topic to talk about, and it's an easy conversation for us. But he's getting ready to test for his black belt, so I wanted to put that out there, and so we're going to get the update on that when we come back for our follow-up episode to kind of keep the conversation going. So I wanted to put that out there for just the so this is not live. This will come out at some point in time this week of the first week in October. It's the first full week in October, like week wise of when this thing's going to come out. So it's the 6th as when we're recording today. But I just want to put that out there, man, to send you some positive vibes and just remind you that all that little nervousness you were feeling, and man, I have this sneaky feeling that's excitement. And I wanted to make sure that I put that on record here, for so it'll live forever in this moment here of us kind of leading into what's a big deal for you. And I'm excited to hear how well you do, man.
That's another thing too. It's a spiritual martial art. Of all the
Yeah,
things well, I guess all martial arts are spiritual, but
yeah.
yeah, I hope it's that. I hope it's excitement. I'm just nervous as heck right now, but we'll see.
You
We'll see.
so folks want to get in touch with you, Brian. You got a website yet? You got Instagram? What's your?
I had a website. I took it down simply because I thought I was going to publish this book a long time ago,
I got you.
and now I finally finished it, and it's in the stages of editing now.
Yeah.
You know, there's some things I have to. The editor was pretty hard, and I guess that's what the job is. So there's some things I have to tweak around.
Well, here's
So
what we'll do,
before I
folks.
put
If
that,
at this point in time, if you want to get in touch with Brian, just go over to my website, jeffreyrobertson.com. Send me a note. There's a little contact form on there. Send me a note and say, hey, connect me with Brian. I'll take care of doing that for you. I'll act as that.
yeah,
And then as your website comes to life, I'll bookmark it in all the show notes for everyone. And that's just for this episode.
you're awesome.
Like I said, my goal is for Brian and I to kind of keep this story going because we kind of echoed there, got into some intuitive stuff, shared a couple stories about. Um, just to that commonality, man. That's what I want to do. I was excited to talk to you, just to like, cause we do like is we have some very and
Yeah,
you can't like Brian said, you can't go to EAP and tell them you're having, and then you're seeing the future and crap like that. But when you're just able to have a conversation about some random things that go on in your life between two dudes that it happens to a lot, I got a couple other good ones you're gonna
there
love when we come back. So.
there are so many things we could talk about. Oh my God, so many things.
I had
Yes.
a Brian. I'll close you with this, man. I had a friend that passed away, close friend, one of the few close friends that's gone. He didn't want to go. He lived in my head and around me for about a week before we actually buried him. And I've got a great story I'll share with you on that one. Just to prep the audience on there's some cool stuff that we're going to talk about and some very random things that happened between
You know,
dudes.
also, Jeff, I also didn't tell you I'm part of a paranormal investigative team, and so we're doing a lot of historical. We have Nathan Hale Homestead.
Yeah.
Nathan Hale, the Connecticut Trail. We have a presentation. We were asked to do a couple investigations there, so that's a whole
Yeah,
other
we're gonna do
arena.
that one. So I'll make sure you get I'll text you the link and then we'll jump back on. But hey,
Awesome.
folks, we're gonna wrap this episode of the Jeff Robertson Show. Thank you for tuning in. And like I say, if you want to get in touch with Brian, reach out for me. Otherwise, if you want to hear more about these things and connect with me, if you're experiencing the same thing, want somebody to talk to about it, just head over to jeffreyrobertson.com, fill out that contact form, and I'll connect with you. Thanks for tuning in.